I'm Jim Collison. We're live from Infotec 2017. I think in our 4th year of broadcasting live from Infotec, and I'm here with Paul Oliver. Paul, I think this is the 2nd or 3rd time maybe we've had you on.
I think the 3rd,
Yeah, so welcome back to Infotec. Hey, let's catch up with you a little bit. Give us a little bit of your background, what you're doing, where you're at, some of those kinds of things, just so folks know who you are.
Right now I'm at Mosaic, which is it's a company out of Lincoln. It's owned by Huddle and Nelnet. And what we're doing is basically Huddle for the classroom. So think of any situation where people will be going through a simulation, like student teaching or nursing school. And what you can do is you can film the interaction of that student and then mark up in real time whether they did something good or maybe a teachable moment. And you can actually type up annotations, hey, you should have done this. And then they can go home and watch their feedback and see exactly what they did and what the feedback was for that moment. It's a great product. So I'm doing that. And my stack right now is .NET and then AWS. So we're using Node and Python and all that fun stuff. So it's good stuff.
Well, and so for folks who don't know, Huddle is sports software, right?
Yes.
Where you can film people batting or throwing or catching or whatever, right? Full football
games, practices, basketball games.
Right.
And then,
so someone films those, moves them to the cloud.
Yes.
They get broken up and some stats and some other things I think get added to them at that point.
Yeah.
For you then, so you're just taking that same model and saying any kind of repeatable skill that I can film and watch and then give feedback on. As I was thinking about this at our church, we, every Sunday we get a video at the end.
Yes.
And it's sent back to the production team and they say, hey, watch your part, or here's what you look like. Have you ever thought about going into the church space and allowing to?
That is an awesome one. No, we haven't thought of that one yet.
Interesting.
It's cool because all kinds of new industries have kind of revealed themselves to us. One thing is aeronautics, going to pilot school. People will go through training simulations in like a mock cockpit.
Yeah.
And they want to, those are long simulations, like 4 hours long. You don't want to watch 4 hours of film to see what you did wrong. So it's great that we can pinpoint, like at the 1 hour and 12-minute mark, you pulled a dial you shouldn't have, and that's why you went into a free fall or whatever.
Oh, what if there were sensors on those dials too that then automatically like create an event, right?
Absolutely.
And so those events would be recorded and you could easily go back and find those events.
I could see this too for speech and debate. If you are in a competition and you want to see moments where you probably had high level of energy or maybe an area where you need to ramp it up, instead of watching the whole thing, you can get right at that. Band competitions.
Is there any analytics on the back or any automated analytics on the back end? Are you guys able to find things in the video? We just interviewed a guy who is using some software that you could put on a doorbell or a video camera that detects movement and can track a car or a dog or a person.
This is great. So we're experimenting with it a little bit.
Yeah.
Because when we transcode a video, we actually take those frames and then we can analyze them. And then Amazon has an image recognition service called Recognition, and we can pipe those images to them and it'll tell you whether that image had a dog in it or cats or people, how many people. And we're like going to wrap up Elasticsearch with it and then hopefully give you more insights. Yeah. You can search a video. What was that video that had a dog in it? Be able to search that.
Right.
But it's impressive what's available to you in the cloud.
In security cameras, it's important because you don't want to watch, to your point.
Exactly.
You don't want to watch all that film. Like you want to go back to what were the moments of movement and what were the movement that I was interested in. They got a certain distance from my house or they were right. You want that. You want kind of those smart pieces of data that you don't want to track the kind of the whole piece going in. So Sighthound is the name of that company that's doing. We asked them, we're going to try and do an interview on Home Gadget Geeks with them. But I thought, wow, really, really cool. Some very cool processes in what you're doing as well. When we think of speech, there are tons of videos that I do. I mean, in a podcasting sense, I could load that video in and you guys could do some analysis on that as well, right? And there might be some moments or to break up some conversation or to figure out when I ask the next question, some of those kinds of things.
So you can also take the audio and transcribe it. And so we are experimenting with that. It's one of those things where we can grab some audio and take the words and then allow you to search it and then maybe even put that at the bottom of the screen or allow you to jump to that point in time where you said, something about, data, and then it will jump to that point in the video.
Yeah, that's great. using a similar, I'm using a tool called Auphonic that I can load my audio to, and then it will transcribe it and put some timestamps in it as well. And I'm using the Google translation engine.
Yeah.
What are you guys using for the translation pieces in there? Because that's the hardest part, right? Understanding, especially apparently I'm hard to understand sometimes because I've put other people and it transcribes it way better than when I'm talking. But what are you guys using to get that transcription?
There's an open source tool for Linux that we're playing with on a VM, and I can't recall the name right now. But we're also looking at Amazon has a service called Lex. And Lex is basically the engine that fires Alexa queries. So when you say, Alexa, what time is the movie playing? It actually takes that speech and converts it to text. And they open that service up to developers too.
That's cool.
So we're going to play with both and see which gives us better results.
Yeah, well, I think we're still a little bit a ways away. I think you would find that that's maybe, I'd say 85% accurate. Is that what you're seeing today for the most part? Yeah. I just think it's going to take time. Machine learning and understanding of natural language is a really, really difficult process. I think if you learn a voice, if the machine can learn the voice, it's much more accurate in the future. And we're not to the point today where we can store tons of my voice files in the cloud yet to compare those, right? I mean, how cool would it be when the camera would recognize, oh, that's me, and then I would have an open repository of my voice, my wave, what I make, and it could ping that API and say, okay, this is Jim Collison. He has a voice file in our records.
Here's his profile. This is what is
now I'm going to translate based on that. And I know for us podcasters too, and maybe in your space as well, knowing the difference of when you're talking and then when I'm talking, because that's confusing too in a transcript, right?
Absolutely.
It all meshes together, like just right there. You said absolutely in the middle of my sentence, but that's you and not me. You know, the computer's still not really
can't
good.
do that. It's just the text of what was said.
Well, that's very, very cool. I'm going to have to follow some of the work that you're doing there because I think it pertains a lot to what we're doing with media.
Oh, for sure.
And the way we're talking and the way we're doing things. So you're here, which I'm very interested in this because you're here talking about kind of Amazon skills.
Yes.
And that is and Alexis, well, we have to be careful when we say that, right? Because that starts invoking.
If you have a device at home like an Echo, you probably want to shut it off right now. Or because we'll be saying that wake word a lot.
We may try and say just the Amazon device.
We'll try that
as we're going through this. That's been one of the hardest parts about podcasting about those devices is you invoke them. Same thing with that one from Microsoft. Same thing with that one from Google.
Yep.
You can invoke them. And I've been watching a lot of March Madness basketball. It's that time of the year. March Madness is going on here in the U.S. And I've noticed some of the Amazon commercials for the device, and they come out right out and say the wake word, and I'm like, oh, I wonder how many of those they're setting off.
Well, I think they have I think they preload them with ignore this sound clip because they're not setting them off.
Oh,
in my experience,
that's a great idea.
We do this, so I think I think they were smart about it.
That's good. That's good to know.
So right now I'm like planning this talk, and I've actually uploaded a YouTube video of it. And while I'm recording it at home, that thing is going off constantly behind me. So I had to unplug it. I keep forgetting. But at the beginning of the video, I put a disclaimer, please unplug your device. Or I call it Burbexa, which also is a good code word. Then I can say it, and they get what I'm saying.
Yeah,
but
I've heard other podcasts where they've given it a nickname of some kind. At our house, when we want to talk about her, we call her Lexi.
Oh,
so that's kind of the wake word upstairs, and then we have that other device that starts with an E downstairs. So we just call it the dot. And then we kind of know, and it doesn't set it off.
That's smart
from that standpoint. But you're talking about skill development. I'm interested because I want to develop a skill for podcasters to be able to say, "Hey, device, play Home Gadget Geeks," and it will just automatically go into that skill, and then maybe provide some options. What are you talking about in your session today?
So what we're going to build today is a lot of the skills out there, the tutorials, they're real basic. They're like, hello world, or today's question is, and you have to hand type that in. I wanted to take it up a notch and actually have you talk to a third-party service, and do C#. So I really made it tough on me in a 45-minute session and explain how the Burbexa service works.
Yes.
It's really hard to do. So, but I was excited. I actually have been able to pull it off. But what I'm talking about today is we're going to say device, what's the capital of in a country, and I'll actually look up the capital for you and then the population of that country. And we're going to do that start to finish, start with a blank slate and actually code it up in C# and then upload it to AWS Lambda. And it's going to be, it's a fun thing to see how easy it is to build one of these skills.
Yeah. Now,
it's not hard.
Easy for a developer. I'm not a software developer, although I manage them. I don't write code myself. I was an old PL SQL guy, and I can get data out of a database if you put a gun to my head. That's why it's been 10 years or so.
Don't use that drop command. That's bad.
That's right. Undo. So why C#? I mean, is it just because that's what you're most familiar with? And then the skill set really, when the skills API or the SDK kind of assumes you've got some development background, even they say anybody can do this.
Yeah,
I think it's a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges of the code itself and why C#?
Sure. C# to prove out that you could do .NET on AWS Lambda. Up until December, actually, you couldn't use any .NET languages on AWS Lambda. It was all Python, Node.js, that sort of thing. But then they announced just a few months ago you could use C#. I wanted to prove out that it could be done, and I know there's a lot of .NET people in Omaha that would be interested in that. Then secondly, if you are going to develop a device skill for Amazon device, you would want to use Node.js probably. That is the most popular one, and that is not something for the faint of heart. Node is a finicky, beast. It's really tough to work with if you don't understand how that code works. So I think it's unfortunate they're saying that anybody could do it. It's not there yet.
Yeah.
They have templates that'll get you far quickly. Yeah. But when you get into things like playing sound clips and stuff, it's going to be a little bit tough.
Sound clips, and they have some audio templates that they do. They require you put a certain number of actions in, but then I couldn't figure out how to fill in the other actions. Skip ahead, go back. Some of those other actions that they have built in.
Stuff that you're trying to do. Yeah, right? But it can be done, and I haven't actually built a skill that complex yet. I've read documentation and went, wow. But if you have that skill, and if we build this skill, I mean, there's going to be a lot of, it's audio, it's podcasting. It's a perfect medium for it. And being able to just play that podcast without pulling out your iPhone or your Android device, it's just sitting there on the couch and listening to it. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, well, in my case, what I'd love to have is a podcast skill where you can just plug in an RSS feed. So I can, when I subscribe to it on the device, on the Amazon device, I almost said it.
Almost said it.
It'll, I can invoke that podcast and not just play it, but there may be some other skill-like things, questions, contact information. Hey, send a voice message to the podcaster. I'd love to be able to get instant feedback through my Amazon device after the podcast is over. So after I've listened to it on there, she would prompt me to say, do you have any feedback? I'm recording, right? How cool would that be?
That would be awesome.
Right?
Yeah. There's no reason why you couldn't do any of that.
I know.
The audio file could be recorded and then saved in, an S3 bucket, and then you just have like a bucket full of messages that you can go play.
I just need to find an aspiring developer who's willing to, because I think it could even be something, I'm here talking about podcast marketing today. And there's a growing, the point I'm going to make is there's a growing number of podcasters and companies. Gallup is one of those where we take podcasting very seriously now, where that could be a great, great service to them, as well as we are coming up with a Strengths Finder app for Alexa, and we've been thinking about that and testing with that. And I would love to be able to plug in my podcast to that app.
Yes.
Right. So tell me about you've taken Strengths Finder.
I've taken Strengths Finder.
So do you remember what your number one theme is? What's your number one theme?
Input.
So you could say, hey, Amazon device, tell me more about input, and it would come back and give you some definitions or stuff about you, right? It might know who you are. And
so I read the Strengths-Based Leadership book, and they have each strength, and it tells you tips for how you should interact with people with that strength.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that would be awesome if you build that into the skill to give you tips, or if you have somebody on your team that has a strength that you're not that familiar with, to give you tips on how you should interact with them. I mean, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
What a cool idea.
What about if you tied your team in? So this is on your desk at work, and you tie your team in. and it would remind you of certain things about your team members.
Yeah.
Or,
oh wow.
hey,
And keeping in mind what your strengths are and how
Right
you
on.
should interact with that person.
right on.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, think of the machine learning that could be required behind that to tie
Yes.
you to the team and to give you some good advice on the back end. Saying
That's
that,
cool.
Paul, and knowing what you know about skill development, is it really, really hard to get that done? Or
No. It's your hardest thing is just storing that in a database and being able to retrieve it fast. And
Yeah.
I've just used DynamoDB, and it wouldn't be hard.
Well, good.
Awesome.
Well, it's it's in an early stages, and so we're kind of working through
Man,
that.
I'd love to hear how that goes.
We'll have
What you learned.
to keep you posted. In getting ready for this session that you're doing, anything surprise you when we think about skill development and the work that you've done? Anything surprise you in that space?
The biggest thing is I did not expect so many companies to come out with home devices so quickly and around each other, and they're all very similar. And so it's hard to compare all three of them, and I haven't compared them that well. I've just heard things.
So you would be referring to the Google Home, right?
And
then
Microsoft
the
device
Microsoft's Cortana,
Yeah.
right? And I've been messing around a lot with Cortana, and I think Microsoft has said they're going to try and come out with a SDK that will convert skills, Amazon skills,
I didn't know that.
into Cortana skills.
That's smart.
Yeah, and have you done any? Have you looked at the Google infrastructure? Does it have similar availability?
Other than I've heard that they have troubles with audio. So when they're playing music, it's hard to hear you say their wake word.
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
But other than that, I've heard it's pretty similar as far as what it can do.
Do you use your device for other things other than development? Or are you getting?
I love playing. There's 2 games on there I like to play: Jeopardy, and then there's one called the Magic Door. And my kids, it's like a choose your own adventure, almost like you're trapped and you got to escape. It's awesome.
And so is that multiple choice? You're here. It's kind of like the old days. I remember we would get these on old DOS screens.
Yes.
You know, you're here, Oregon Trail,
like
the early days of Oregon Trail.
It's like one of those MUDs too, like where you'd play those games online where it says pick up key, go to this. But they made it and they have sound effects and you're in a room and it's really cool. So we have no idea what these home devices are going to look like 5 years from now.
Yeah.
This is just infancy. And it's pretty interesting to kind of see us as we figure out what to do with these devices.
Yeah. Paul, are you worried about security at all on those? The other day I was, I had a medical procedure done and I was talking about it, and the next day it showed up in my Facebook feed.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey.
I think that's Facebook on your phone. They actually do listen on your phone.
They do.
Yes, for sure.
Of course, this is a listening device. Are you worried about security at all on this?
So there was a recent high-profile case where there was a crime that was committed, and I think it was the FBI subpoenaed the Amazon company, asked, hey, can you give us all the audio? And they kind of fought it. They eventually released the audio. And it is interesting. You wonder what are they recording. I run Wireshark just to see what is it actually sending up, and it's encrypted, so it's hard to tell.
Oh, so you can monitor your own feed of what's going up?
Yeah, well, you can see that it's sending stuff. Yeah. You can't read what it is.
All right.
But it looks like it's only recording. To me, it only looks like it records when you say the wake word.
Okay.
So I feel okay with it.
Yeah.
As long as
I think it needs to record it to be able to send it to your app. Right?
Yes.
That is one of those things because you get in the Alexa app. I'm sorry, in the device app.
Yes.
Darn it.
When you open your device app, you can play the recordings that it heard, and then you can give it feedback whether it's transcribing you properly.
Yeah.
And it is cool. They're being transparent. They're showing you that they are recording. But so as far as I'm concerned, I'm not too concerned with these home devices as much as I am with my phone, because I do know that there's apps that actually have access to your microphone at all times. And Facebook is notorious for this. They're listening to what you say, and then they're showing you ads about it. And I just think that's icky. I don't like that at all.
No.
So it seems like the home devices are actually the good guys right now.
I think there's equal concerns about all those things and who's listening when and who has access to it. And I wasn't so freaked out by the NSA, a couple of years ago when we were getting, our phones were being listened to, our phone calls and some of those kinds of things. This seems much more intrusive. It seems like it's on all the time.
The microphones are much better too.
Yeah.
Like if you've ever had one of these devices, you can be across the room and just say the word in casual conversation and it's listening.
Yeah.
Whereas my phone probably wouldn't be able to pick that up across the room.
Right.
So.
Well, we have some challenges ahead for us for sure when we think about those devices. Interesting that you're working on that. When you said that earlier, I was like, yes, because I think that's really the future when we think of the way we order products, the way we interact with news. I use the the daily update, you know, where I say, play my flash briefing. I say that every morning. I don't know. I couldn't just remember that
that's all right.
here.
It's a little weird word.
Yeah, it is weird, but it's different enough that it doesn't trigger something else, right? And I'll just say, hey, play my flash briefing. Those things are really, really helpful. Like I can say that without having to change the mode of what I'm doing.
Exactly.
Right. And
making breakfast, and you can hear the updates in the background.
We've just put Cortana in the kitchen, and so now that's hooked up, and we're going to be doing some testing with that
I'd love to hear what you find
kind
out.
of A/B, like who does what, because certainly, you know, we have found the Amazon device does not search very well, but Cortana, because it's built on top of Bing, it does some amazing searches. From that standpoint.
Absolutely.
So there's some and Cortana's productivity is its connectivity to your email, and some of your productivity and your driving, and some of those things are pretty cool. So I think I just wish I was a little younger so I would get to see the next 50 years, you know. Maybe I'll be around that long. But Paul, thank you for taking a few minutes to come by. Always great to catch up with you. When's your session? What time?
1:15. Similar to a certain person that's also giving a session at 1:15.
Yes, that's right. So we'll miss that. But at least I got some follow-up from you here, and maybe we can touch base about that. So hang tight. We're going to grab the keynote speaker and bring him in. John will be here shortly. So I'm going to shut the mics off. If you're watching live, we'll be right back.